Hey guys, I've had a lot of people ask me how I was able to, I quit smoking cold turkey. And a lot of people are probably like, okay, well, you probably didn't smoke that much, or maybe you didn't smoke that long. No, not the case at all. I actually smoked. This is really embarrassing for me to even admit it, but I had smoked since I was 14 years old. When I was 14 years old, that was when I first started smoking. I kind of went through a rebellious stage. I had an older boyfriend who was 4 years older than me, so he was able to buy the cigarettes for me. And I felt really cool. I felt mature. I hung out with people who were older than me and who were old enough to smoke. And so I felt validated by smoking at 14 because I always wanted to be older. When you're older, when you're younger, you're always trying to be older. And when you're older, you're always trying to be younger. So at the time, I felt cool. I felt mature. I felt validated. And so that's when it began for me. And it's an addictive habit. So it started out with me casually smoking just to fit in and to feel cool and to feel older. And then I got addicted, which obviously is what happens because nicotine is highly addictive. And so I had all these habits that I developed, certain times that I would smoke, like when I got in my car, after I ate food, when I was on the phone, when I was with friends. The first few years of smoking, I would never go and smoke a cigarette by myself. I wasn't that heavy of a smoker for the first few years. And then the more I smoked, or the longer I smoked, the more I began to smoke. And it went from me smoking a couple cigarettes here and there socially to me smoking a pack a day, which is just disgusting. I was coughing so much that, like, it was just not a good thing. And then I got pregnant with my son and I quit smoking. It was hard for me to quit smoking, but at the same time, it was easy for me to quit smoking because I wasn't quitting for myself. I didn't care about my own health. I cared about his health. And so I quit smoking for him. The very first time that I went out after he was born, I went out with friends, had some drinks, and I had a cigarette because I had thought about having a cigarette the entire time I was pregnant. Like I said, I didn't quit for me. I didn't want to quit. I still felt like smoking was that cool thing to do. And it just gave me the sense of empowerment, like I'm a rebel and, whatever. And so I smoked a cigarette that night with some friends when I went out for the first time after my son was born. And after that, I was done for again. The very next day, I bought a pack of cigarettes and I continued smoking again. There had been times where I tried quitting after that because in the beginning, smoking was cool to me. And it was like this rebellious thing to do. It made me feel older. It made me feel, it just made me feel cool. And then as I got older, I started to realize smoking is not cool. Smoking is actually really unattractive. It's really unhealthy. We all know what it does for our health. And I started to realize I didn't want to be a smoker. I judged other people that smoked, yet I smoked. And so I began hiding my smoking. Originally, I was like out there smoking my cigarettes, thinking I was all cool and a badass. And then when I realized it wasn't cool, I couldn't just quit though, because I was heavily addicted to the nicotine and more so than anything, the habit of smoking at my certain trigger times. So I couldn't just quit. And so I would hide it, and it was justifiable to me to be a smoker and just hide it. My coworkers didn't know I smoked, or my boss, didn't know I smoked because I was embarrassed. I began getting really into health and fitness and I'm a health coach. And so I did not want people to know that me as a health coach was out there smoking cigarettes. I mean, my whole day revolved around cigarettes. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd have to have a cigarette. I'd have a cup of coffee. I'd have to have a cigarette. I would eat breakfast, have to have a cigarette after. I would do my workout, and believe it or not, you guys, I'd have to have a cigarette before my workout to mentally prepare to do my workout. I would do my workout, I'd cough and hack and damn near throw up. And after my workout, I had to reward myself with a cigarette to feel good about doing that workout. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Like, I know how messed up that was, but that is what an addiction does. And so here I am, this addicted health and fitness coach. I wouldn't put bad foods into my body because I'm healthy, and I didn't want to put anything into my body. Like, I legit will not even take a Tylenol. I did not at the time, and I still don't take Tylenol. But this was my mentality. It was so twisted. Like, I would not take a Tylenol because it was bad for me. In my opinion, I didn't want to put anything that wasn't natural into my body. I didn't want to put any chemicals, anything like that into my body. But yet here I am outside smoking a pack of cigarettes. Like, it made no sense. So I began getting embarrassed as I was this health coach because I stopped hanging around with so many of the people that smoked all the time, and that was just their normal. I started hanging around a lot of people who did not smoke, and so I was actually the outcast for smoking, and I was so embarrassed of it that I would go and hide. So for me, what made me decide I am going to quit smoking was actually when I was at Coach Summit in 2016. 2017, sorry. Went to Coach Summit 2017, and all of my other fellow coaches, all the other girls that I was staying with, none of them smoked. I didn't want them to know that I smoked. I was really embarrassed of it. I didn't want any other coaches to know that I smoked because health coaches should not smoke. If you're a health coach, you shouldn't be smoking, plain and simple. Well, nobody should be smoking, but a health coach definitely should not be smoking. So I hid it from people, but yet I was like having severe withdrawals while I'm at Summit. So I'd like go and hide. I'd like leave these trainings and like go out and sneak and hide a cigarette because I was so addicted to cigarettes and smoking. And so after that and going there, I realized, you know what, like I have got to quit smoking. That's what initially made me want to quit smoking. So I decided, I set a date. Here's the steps that I took and what worked for me. I'm not saying this is going to work for everybody, but it worked for me. And so I'm going to share these just in case maybe it'll work for someone else. So number one, I decided I wanted to quit smoking. You have to decide you want to quit smoking. If you don't want to quit smoking, you're not going to quit smoking. So number one, I decided that I was going to quit smoking. Number two, I set a date. I had decided Summit was in June, or no, it was July of 2017. And I knew that I couldn't just quit overnight. Like I knew that I needed to prepare for it. I needed to cut down from, at this point I was smoking about a half a pack to 3/4 of a pack of cigarettes a day. On the weekends when I was drinking, I would smoke 1 to 2 packs of cigarettes on a night of drinking. I would smoke and smoke and smoke one after another. And my hangovers would be treacherous because the nicotine and all of the overdose of smoking would just make a hangover so much worse. So I set a date. I set my date as October 19th. I had decided on this date because it was MEA weekend and I had a long weekend and I knew that I could like be busy, and my son was off from school and I knew that I could be busy like doing things with him, and I wanted to keep busy and I wanted to be in a public setting where because like I said, I was embarrassed, I would hide it from people. So I wanted to be somewhere in this public setting so that I would have a harder time, like, you know, if I were at home, it would be easy for me just to go out and you know, smoke and no one would know anything. So I set the date, and the night before I smoked a cigarette, and I had cigarettes left in my pack. I didn't even finish the pack. Before I went and smoked my last cigarette, I said to my husband, I said, "This is my last cigarette ever." And I handed him the pack of cigarettes that I had left over, and I said, "Get rid of them. This is my last cigarette." And I don't think he really realized how serious I was. He was like, "Okay." Well, that was my last cigarette, and I have not smoked a cigarette since, and I will not smoke a cigarette for the rest of my life. Um, you have to make a decision you want to quit. And I made that decision. I set the date. I smoked my last cigarette. I enjoyed it. And I knew it was going to be the last cigarette that I had ever smoked. However, it wasn't that easy. I had tried quitting smoking multiple times before that. The difference in what I did this time, in addition to deciding and setting a date, because I had done that multiple times before and it didn't work. I also did a 3-day cleanse where I was like cleansing my body, detoxing my body, drinking lots of water, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, no processed foods. And so it was like just a zap to my system where I was like cleaning out the toxins. I went through night sweats. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd have nightmares. I'd be like, I was having withdrawals from cigarettes. I had smoked for years and years and years since I was 14 years old, minus the time that I was pregnant with my son. And so there were physical effects from me not smoking that were very difficult. I had like anxiety, my heart would start beating, and a lot of things would happen to where my body was withdrawing from cigarettes and nicotine. And so in addition to the cleanse, I also decided that every time I had a trigger or an urge for a cigarette, I was not only going to fight the urge, I was going to replace my bad habit with a positive habit. And 21 days was kind of like my day where there was a lot of fitness programs that I had followed that were 21 days. So I decided I was going to do this 3-day cleanse, and then I was going to follow a 21-day program, because if I could make it to 21 days following this fitness program, drinking more water, and replacing my bad habit, every time I wanted to smoke a cigarette, I'd either go do sit-ups, or I would go do push-ups, or I would do something until I was physically exhausted and didn't want to have the urge anymore, or until I no longer had the urge. And I would drink a ton of water, because there's something with like your mouth, and I drank actually out of a water bottle. Because the straw and like just doing something with my mouth made me not think about smoking so much, and it made the urge go away. So I replaced my smoking habit with sit-ups and push-ups and water. However, I still thought about cigarettes all the time. So in addition to that, I had to stop doing certain things. I had to stop hanging out with people who smoked for a certain amount of time. For that 21-day time period, I seriously had to say no to friends that smoked, because I knew that if I was around them, it would be very hard to smell the cigarette smoke and to not want to have a cigarette. I also had to stop talking on the phone, because talking on the phone was like one of my triggers and one of my urges. I used to sit and talk on the phone and smoke cigarette after cigarette after cigarette until I was done with my phone conversation. Sometimes I would just go smoke a cigarette and I'd feel like I needed to call someone, because that was like, those two went hand in hand for me. I also had to stop drinking coffee for 21 days, because coffee and cigarettes, like I associated my morning cup of coffee with cigarettes. And instead I would drink water. And, so I was constantly replacing my habit with healthier urges. I was replacing my trigger. I had to eliminate those trigger times when I would get in my car. That one wasn't so bad for me, because I would never smoke when my son was in the car. But initially that was like something that made me think of a cigarette. So if I got in my car after I got home, I would think like I need to smoke a cigarette, because I was just in the car. So I had to fight that and like tell myself that I was going to do something. I would have a goal to do something after I got home from driving somewhere, so that my mind would no longer be on smoking a cigarette when I got home. It would be on doing something else. So I'd set a specific task to do immediately when I got home to avoid that trigger. Another trigger would be when I ate. So after eating, I always wanted to smoke a cigarette. So after eating, instead, that's when I would really drink a lot of water. And those are some things that worked for me. So I would highly suggest replacing, you know, your habit with something healthy, because it's a lot easier to replace a habit than it is to just stop a bad habit. So those are the things that worked for me. Now I went that 21 days, and that was kind of my initial like period to just really get over that hump of the hard time. And so now I talk on the phone now, and like I do all those things, and I don't think about smoking anymore. I mean, every once in a while, like when I'm around people that are smoking, or if I'm outside by a bonfire, you know, I think about a cigarette, but I know how much better I feel not smoking. I can taste. I love to eat. So it's unbelievable. Like I always love food, even when I smoked, but now I really, really love food. And it's a myth. You always hear you're going to gain weight when you you know, when you stop smoking. That is a myth, you guys. Start eating vegetables. Make vegetables your go-to, or drink water out of a straw. Like, yes, there is something with your mouth, so a lot of times it is easy to just like eat instead of smoke. But I did not gain weight, and what I have gained is feeling so much better. Another reason that I had quit smoking, my dad had went in right around that same time. He had went in for surgery for a clogged artery, and my dad has also quit smoking at that same time and has been smoke-free now, just as long as I have. So super excited about that. Ryden also, like, I love that I no longer have to smoke. He was so proud of me for quitting smoking, and that just made it so rewarding. If you guys want help, like, or if you just want some other tips, let me know. I'd love to help anyone quit smoking. We're all capable. It's all in our minds. Like, if you put your mind to it, it does not matter. I am 29 years old, and I smoked since I was 14. So I had smoked for 15 years. That is more than half of my life I have smoked, which is disgusting. But if I was able to quit cold turkey by doing those things, I know that anyone else is able to quit as well. So I've had a lot of people ask me, so I figured I'd just make a quick video. Wanted to share what worked for me. I'm not saying it will work for everyone. However, it did work for me, and I will never look back. I will never smoke again, ever, because I know that the rewards of not smoking are so much better. All right, guys, talk to you later.